Alright, Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life was a very popular game released on the 3DS, and at this point, we should have had a sequel. Now, Tomodachi Life, to explain the game very briefly, I'm sure you know it, but still, for those who don't, it's a game where you have an island where you put your own Miis on. You have to help them by, fixing their problems, giving them food, that sort of stuff. You can play minigames with them, they can have jobs, you can customize lots of stuff like the Miis themselves by giving them clothing or whatever, or their rooms. And the most interesting part to the game is the various kind of relationships. People can have family relationships, friendships, but also romantic relationships. So it's a very simple concept that really got extremely popular. So it is very surprising that we don't have a new one, especially considering we got a new Miitopia, and also because they literally said in an interview, they talked about it, about a new Tomodachi Life and what they would do in the new game, that sort of stuff. So it is really mind-blowing that at this point we have not gotten anything. I mean, it released on my birthday in 2013, and since then it has been radio silence about... Oh, it has not been radio silence since then, but it has been a long time since we've seen anything about Tomodachi Life. So today in this video I wanted to talk about certain reasons or theories about why we don't have a new one, and I'm also going to be debunking some of them. Let's get into it with the first one, because Miis aren't really used anymore. Now that is not entirely the case, of course. Miis do exist on the Switch. We also got a new Miitopia on the Switch, so that means something, and Nintendo Switch Sports has not really Miis, but I guess new Miis. It's a little weird, they look very goofy. So it's not really that Miis aren't used anymore, but it is more about them trying to move away from them. So Miis, we all know them and we all love them, but the reality is that games with them are actually underperforming. Even though Tomodachi Life was one of the most popular titles on the entire 3DS, they are still trying to move away from Miis. A possible explanation for that could of course be the Wii U, because now they might see Miis and anything related to the Wii U as a risk, and they're trying to move away from that now. Another possible reason is because of controversial relationship stuff, most notably same-sex relationships. The theory goes that it's not good for sales in some countries, or will be straight banned in some other countries, like for example most of Africa and a lot of the Middle East and more, where those things are just straight banned, and Nintendo don't really like controversy. But that is also not really realistic, because first of all, why talk about the sequel in the first place if you know this kind of stuff? I mean, Nintendo definitely knows what they are talking about at all times. Now, they also mentioned that they would add same-sex relationships in a sequel, so that doesn't make sense at all. They literally confirmed that they were going to do that. And also, other Nintendo games have LGBTQ plus positive things, like dressing like the opposite gender, which includes the original Tomodachi Life, and actual relationships, like for example in Fire Emblem. Some say Fire Emblem is more adult oriented, but that's also a very bad argument in my opinion, because first of all, children aren't really the ones to complain about that sort of stuff. It's always the adults. And another reason is because the new Miitopia on the Switch also has same-sex relationships, and that's why it got an age restriction in Russia, for example. So they are definitely making those steps. So the controversial relationship stuff is not a good explanation for why we don't have a new Tomodachi Life. A third reason, which I personally find more likely, is because Nintendo don't really know how they are going to port Tomodachi Life to the Switch. So Tomodachi Life is very dependent on the double screen from the 3DS and DS, like things with apartments, minigames, menus, just interacting in general. It all happens on different screens. And the Switch definitely already doesn't have two screens, but it also works very different from a normal console with the docking and handhold and taking off your controllers. Miitopia makes a lot more sense to make a new game about, because that's easier to port and maybe more interesting gameplay wise for them. Another thing that the 3DS has that the Switch doesn't have is Street Pass, which was something that they originally used to interact with the local players a lot. And Switch is not that focused on local gaming at all. And another reason is that the Switch is approaching the end of its lifespan. So it feels like, or it might feel like a waste to make it now and not on a future console. I do think this is the most likely explanation because things really seem to add up there. Though I do think that it is very much possible to make this happen, but I don't personally know how they are going to do that. It's not my job to find out how they're gonna do that, but I'm sure they will find a way. A fourth explanation could be that they're just not really interested anymore. Maybe they have other projects or they have no faith in New Tomodachi Life, even though it sold very well. And I guess that is always possible. We don't really know what is going on behind the scenes at Nintendo, but at the same time, I feel like it really doesn't make sense for Nintendo to promise something like that and just not do anything with it anymore after that. Nintendo definitely have some very questionable things, but in general I think their games are very reliable and consistent, and I don't think they're going to take that risk of just promising something and then not doing it. That seems very unusual for Nintendo. I suppose it is possible, but I don't really see it happening that way. So a fifth reason is that they're still going to do it. That they're possibly planning something, for example, like a very big surprise or big announcement, or maybe just a big release during some of their Nintendo Direct. Maybe they're gonna do it on a new console, like I mentioned earlier. Or maybe they're still working on it with some big innovations or expansions that need a lot of time. And I'm sure that they were definitely working on it at some point. Otherwise, they really wouldn't mention that they are going to make a sequel. So whatever it may be, they're not working on it anymore, or that it is taking so long. Let's hope that it is this last one, that they're planning something very big that we can all be very excited about. Alright, anyways, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm sure this is gonna be a little bit of a shorter one, but that's fine, right? So I want to thank you for watching. It really means a lot. Make sure to subscribe so I can pass an ex-classmate who makes male guru videos. But with that, I bid thee farewell.